The night Chase Donovan walked out, Madison Reed stood in the kitchen of their Manhattan apartment, clutching the edge of the counter to keep from collapsing. The city lights glowed through the window like tiny, indifferent stars, and her daughter Ellie slept unaware in the next room. Madison's hand trembled as she rested it on her belly, 4 months pregnant, alone, and abandoned with no warning. Chase didn't even look back. He simply closed the door behind him, suitcase in one hand, the scent of another woman's perfume still lingering on his coat. Earlier that evening, he had confessed it without shame. "I'm done pretending, Mads. Liana makes me feel alive. I need more than this. Family stuff. Family stuff." That was what he called the life they built. Madison wanted to scream, but her voice broke into a whisper. "We have a daughter. I'm carrying your son." Chase only shrugged. "You'll manage. You always do." When the elevator doors swallowed him, silence crashed into the apartment. Madison sank to the floor, her breath hitching as she pressed both hands to her stomach. The baby kicked faintly, as if pleading for a mother who was barely holding herself together. Minutes felt like hours. She wiped her tears, forced herself to stand, and grabbed the half-finished grocery list on the table. Ellie would wake up wanting breakfast. Milk was low. Money was tight. Chase had taken his credit cards back, leaving her with whatever was in her worn-out wallet. So she typed a text to her sister. "Can you bring milk for Ellie tomorrow morning? I'm exhausted, please." A simple message, a desperate one. And in her shaking, heartbroken state, Madison didn't notice the number she clicked. Across the city, in a penthouse on Park Avenue, a billionaire's phone lit up at 11:03 p.m. Sebastian Hale read the message slowly. Twice. Then he sat up straight, and everything in Madison's life began to shift. Because Sebastian Hale wasn't the kind of man who ignored a cry for help. By the next morning, Madison Reed was no longer the woman who once hosted dinner parties in a sunlit Manhattan apartment. She was just a mother, pregnant, exhausted, and trying to keep life from unraveling in front of her 6-year-old daughter. With Chase gone and the rent overdue, she packed their belongings into cardboard boxes that once carried discount groceries. Each thud of a box closing felt like a chapter of her old life slamming shut. Brooklyn wasn't supposed to be permanent. It was a temporary fix, she told herself, even though she had no idea how long temporary would last. The narrow apartment smelled faintly of old paint, and the downstairs neighbors fried onions. Ellie tiptoed through the room, her little backpack bouncing against her shoulders. "Mommy, is Daddy coming today?" The question hit like a dull knife. Madison knelt, brushing Ellie's curls behind her ears. Her voice cracked despite her best efforts. "Not today, sweetheart, but I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." Ellie nodded bravely, but her eyes told another story. Children can sense a storm long before adults admit one is coming. That morning, Madison walked her daughter to school, her steps slow and uneven. The pregnancy made her nauseous, the stress made her dizzy, and the cold wind stung her eyes until tears threatened to spill. She reminded herself, this is what mothers do. They keep going, even when their hearts are dragging behind them. Returning to the apartment, she faced the clutter of boxes, unpaid bills, and the buzzing silence of a life missing its other half. Not that Chase had ever been a strong half, more like a shadow she once trusted. The fridge rattled, then groaned, then died completely. Madison opened it anyway. A half carton of eggs, some butter, and barely a cup of milk left. Ellie would ask for cereal in the morning. The baby kicked gently, as if reminding Madison that he, too, depended on her. She closed the fridge and pressed her forehead against the cool metal, whispering, "I'm trying. I swear I'm trying." The phone buzzed. For a second, she prayed it was Chase apologizing, promising he'd come home. But she knew better. Men like him only returned when life stopped applauding. Instead, the notification read, "Unknown number. Is everything all right? Do you need assistance?" Madison froze. Her heart hammered. She recognized it. The message wasn't from her sister. It was from the number she accidentally texted last night. The billionaire. Sebastian Hale. Her breath hitched. Why would a man like him reach out again? And what did he want from a woman who had nothing left to offer? Madison stared at the unknown message glowing on her cracked phone screen. Is everything all right? Do you need assistance? Her instinct was to delete it, to pretend last night's mistake never happened. In her world, strangers didn't help you, especially not powerful ones. especially not billionaires with penthouses on Park Avenue and lives untouched by the weight of grocery bills and broken refrigerators. But she couldn't ignore the strange steadiness of the message. It wasn't intrusive or flirtatious. It felt deliberate, calm, almost human. She typed back cautiously, "Sorry, wrong number." She hesitated, then added, "Please disregard." She expected that to be the end. Instead, less than a minute later, her phone buzzed again. "No need to apologize. If there's something you require, let me know." Madison exhaled sharply and set the phone down, rubbing her temples. "Why is this happening now?" she whispered. "Why when I can barely breathe as it is?" The apartment door rattled lightly as a cold gust from the hallway swept in. She wrapped her arms around herself and sat on the edge of the sagging sofa, watching the dust drift through the morning light. She felt like that dust floating, unanchored, unnoticed by the world. A wave of nausea hit her. Pregnancy had a way of reminding her she didn't have the luxury of falling apart. She pushed herself up, walked to the sink, and splashed cold water on her face. The reflection staring back at her looked older than 32, eyes swollen, cheeks hollowed by stress. And this was the version of herself the world saw after Chase left. The version he chose to forget? Her phone buzzed again. She jumped. This time, the message said, "If it would ease your mind, my name is Sebastian Hale. You contacted me last night. I simply want to ensure the child you mentioned is all right." Her stomach dropped. He remembered the detail. He remembered Ellie. He remembered her exhaustion. Something inside her, worn down, bruised, and almost lifeless, twitched awake. Not hope exactly, but something near it. The feeling terrified her. She typed slowly, "My daughter is okay. I'm just overwhelmed. Thank you for the concern." "Really?" A pause. Then, "Would a brief call help? If not, I understand." Madison stared at the message, hearing her heartbeat in her ears. No one had asked what would help her in a very long time. She hovered her thumb over the keyboard, uncertain, afraid of needing anything from anyone again. And then the phone rang. Her breath caught. Sebastian Hale was calling her, and answering that call would change far more than she was prepared for. Madison froze as the phone vibrated in her hand. Sebastian Hale's name glowing on the screen like something out of a life she didn't belong in. Her first instinct was to let it ring out. People like him didn't talk to people like her. They didn't live in cramped Brooklyn apartments where the wallpaper peeled or worry about whether there'd be enough milk for breakfast. But the phone kept ringing, steady and patient, as if he knew she needed a moment. Finally, she whispered to herself, "Just breathe," and swiped to answer. "Madison?" His voice was warm, low, and surprisingly gentle. "If this is a bad time, I can call back." "No, it's okay," she managed. "I just wasn't expecting, well, any of this." A soft chuckle. "I imagine last night wasn't easy for you." Her throat tightened. Something about how he said it without pity, without judgment, nearly undid her. "It was. A lot," she admitted. "But I didn't mean to involve you. I really am sorry for the mistake." "Sometimes," he said, "mistakes show us people we should have met sooner." Madison blinked, stunned into silence. Sebastian continued, "You mentioned your daughter. And exhaustion. I just want to make sure you're safe, that she's safe." "I'm managing," she whispered. He paused, as if hearing the truth buried under the words. "Managing isn't the same as living, Madison." A strange flutter rose in her chest. No one had spoken to her like that in years, not even Chase, back when he pretended to care. "I'm not trying to intrude," Sebastian added, "but I do have resources, if you need support." "I don't want charity," she said quickly, instinctively. "Good," he replied calmly, "because I wasn't offering charity." She blinked. "Then, what were you offering?" "Possibility," he answered. "A chance for something better." The baby kicked, and Madison steadied herself against the counter. She hadn't felt hope in so long that even the suggestion of it made her dizzy. "I don't understand," she murmured. "You don't have to yet." Sebastian's tone softened. "But there's something I'd like to discuss with you, in person, somewhere comfortable." Madison swallowed. "Why me?" "Because your message didn't read like someone asking for milk," he said quietly. "It read like someone fighting not to fall apart." Her eyes burned with sudden tears. "Will you meet with me, Madison?" She hesitated, torn between fear and the faintest spark of possibility. Before she could answer, there was a heavy knock at her apartment door. Ellie's frightened voice called from the bedroom, "Mommy?" Madison's heart stopped, because she recognized the voice on the other side of the door. Chase had come back. Madison's pulse thundered in her ears as she crept toward the apartment door. Chase's voice, sharp, impatient, blew through the crack like a cold draft. "Mads, open up. We need to talk." Her grip tightened around the phone. On the other end, Sebastian Hale's voice lowered, instantly alert. "Madison, is everything all right?" She whispered, "He's here." A beat of silence. "Do you want me to stay on the line?" For reasons she couldn't explain, the sound of his voice steadied her. "Yes," she breathed. "Please." Chase knocked again, louder this time. "I know you're in there. Don't make this harder." Madison inhaled shakily and opened the door just enough to block his entrance. Chase looked different, tired, tense, an edge of desperation lurking behind the arrogance he wore like a tailored suit. "You moved to Brooklyn?" he scoffed, glancing past her into the cramped apartment. "God, Mads, this is pathetic. You didn't have to take Ellie to a place like this." Her jaw clenched. "You left us, Chase. What did you expect?" He stepped closer. "I expected you to act like an adult instead of running away." "I didn't run," she snapped softly. "I survived." He opened his mouth, then froze at the faint sound of a man's voice coming from the phone in her hand. "Madison?" Sebastian repeated, calm but firm. "Do you need help?" Chase's eyes darkened. "Who the hell is that?" "No one," she said quickly, but Chase reached for the phone. Madison jerked back, protector instinct flaring, pregnant belly and all. "Oh, I get it now," he sneered. "You moved out here so you could talk to other men?" "Figures. You were always needy." "Chase, stop." Her voice trembled with anger she hadn't allowed herself to feel. "You don't get to come in here and insult me after abandoning your family." He smirked bitterly. "Family? You think that's still on the table?" On the phone, Sebastian's tone shifted lower, sharper. "Madison, step away from him." Chase's expression twisted. "Put the phone down. We're not done." "For once," Madison said quietly, "you don't get to decide that." Silence hung between them tight, dangerous, until Ellie appeared from the hallway, rubbing her tired eyes. "Mommy, why is Daddy yelling?" The color drained from Chase's face, and somewhere through the phone, Sebastian Hale exhaled a slow, controlled breath. "Madison," he said, voice edged with steel, "tell me where you are." Chase's expression shifted the moment Ellie appeared, his confidence faltering, his voice dropping to a whisper he hoped sounded fatherly. "Hey, Peanut? Daddy just came to check on you." Ellie hid behind Madison's leg. It should have softened him. Instead, irritation flickered in his eyes. Madison recognized it instantly, the same look he used to give whenever responsibility asked more of him than he was willing to give. She placed a protective hand on Ellie's shoulder. "It's late, Chase. Please go." But Chase pushed a foot forward, testing the boundary she'd set. "We're not finished, Mads. You don't get to shut me out." On the phone, Sebastian Hale's controlled voice returned. "Madison, is he threatening you?" Chase stiffened. "Who is that man? Why is he on your phone?" "It doesn't matter," Madison said firmly. "Just leave." But Chase wasn't used to being told no, especially by the woman he assumed would always wait for him. His voice sharpened. "If you're seeing someone, that affects custody. Don't forget that." Madison felt something inside her snap, not violently, but decisively. Maybe it was the months of crying in silence. Maybe it was the baby kicking, as if reminding her she wasn't alone. Maybe it was watching Ellie shrink from the man who should have protected her. She spoke softly, but every word hit like steel. "You left us. You don't get to come back and threaten the family you walked away from." Chase blinked, taken aback. Madison rarely pushed back. This version of her unsettled him. He scoffed and turned toward the door. "This isn't over." Ellie trembled. Madison knelt and hugged her tightly, whispering, "You're safe, I promise." When the door finally shut behind Chase, the apartment seemed to exhale with her. Madison lifted her phone again. "I'm so sorry you heard that," she murmured. "You don't owe me an apology," Sebastian replied, voice low with controlled anger. "No one should speak to the mother of his children that way." Madison felt her throat tighten. I'm okay now." "You don't sound okay," he said gently. "And you don't need to pretend with me." For the first time in years, someone spoke to her like she mattered. Not as an inconvenience, not as a burden. As a human being worth listening to. Madison wiped her eyes. Thank you, really. Sebastian exhaled softly. Madison, meet with me tomorrow. There's something you need to know. Her heart skipped. Know about what? His pause was long enough to raise goosebumps on her skin. About Chase, and about why he suddenly came back tonight. Madison froze. Because he didn't come back for you, Madison. He came back for something else. Madison barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard Chase's voice echoing through the small apartment, accusing, threatening, pretending to care. But beneath it all, something in Sebastian's tone haunted her even more. He didn't come back for you, Madison. He came back for something else. By morning, she felt wrung out, her stomach twisting with nausea that had nothing to do with pregnancy. Ellie clung to her before school drop-off, sensing the unease her mother tried so hard to hide. After walking her daughter to class, Madison took the subway into Manhattan. She hadn't been there since moving out, and stepping onto Park Avenue felt like stepping into her old life, the one she had been forced to abandon. Glass towers shimmered in the morning sun, polished cars hummed past, and people moved with purpose she no longer recognized. She arrived at Hale Corp's lobby, palms damp, heart unsteady. A receptionist escorted her to a private lounge overlooking the skyline. It was too beautiful, too serene, like a world she wasn't sure she deserved to be standing in. Then the door opened. Sebastian Hale walked in with the calm presence of someone who carried entire industries on his shoulders. But today, his expression held something else, something protective. "Thank you for coming," he said softly. Madison tried to smile. "You said there was something I needed to know." He motioned for her to sit. "There is, and I'm afraid it won't be easy to hear." Her fingers twisted together in her lap. "Is it about Chase?" Sebastian nodded. "My team does routine background checks on anyone who contacts me unexpectedly. Last night, one of them noticed something unusual." Madison tensed. "Unusual how?" "Chase is in debt," Sebastian said bluntly. "Deep debt, and not the kind that ends with a simple credit call." She felt the air leave her lungs. "He owes money to people who don't wait politely for repayment," Sebastian continued. "Your move to Brooklyn wasn't an accident. Someone followed you, someone he owes." Madison's hand flew to her belly as fear curled inside her. "He came to your apartment last night," Sebastian said, voice tightening, "because he thinks you might have something he can use." Madison shook her head. "But I don't. I barely have enough for my daughter." Sebastian looked at her, gaze sharp with the realization he didn't want to speak. "Madison, he doesn't want money." She swallowed hard. "Then what?" Sebastian leaned forward, eyes steady and serious. "He wants custody." The room tilted. Custody? From the man who walked away? Her heart pounded, breath shallow. "Why?" she whispered. Sebastian hesitated. "Because Chase believes your unborn child is his ticket out of debt." Madison felt the world blur around her. The skyline behind the glass windows shimmered, but everything inside her went dark and cold. "Custody?" she whispered. "He wants custody of a child he didn't even stay for." Sebastian's jaw tightened. "He believes the baby could be leverage. If he convinces the right people he's the more stable parent, he could gain access to financial benefits, legal advantages, even sympathy that could protect him from his debtors." Madison clutched her hands together, nails digging into her palms. How could Chase twist fatherhood into something transactional? She had known he was selfish, but this was monstrous. Her voice shook. "I can't lose my children. I can't." Sebastian leaned forward, calm but unwavering. "You won't." Something in his tone, firm, protective, brought a tremor of unexpected relief to her chest. She hadn't had someone stand beside her in years. She wasn't used to it. She didn't know how to breathe through it. "But how do I fight him?" she asked weakly. "I have nothing. No savings, no attorney, just a tiny apartment, and—" "You have more than you think," Sebastian interrupted gently. "And you're not fighting alone." Madison blinked. "What do you mean?" Sebastian exhaled, as though choosing each word with care. "I need someone to manage an upcoming project for Hale Corp. Someone organized, someone who understands both pressure and people, someone like you." Madison stared at him. "Me? I haven't worked in years. I bake part-time in Brooklyn just to afford groceries." "You survived a failing marriage. You raised a child alone. You rebuilt your life with nothing. That requires more skill than most executives I've hired. Her eyes burned unexpectedly. Why does this man see strengths I've spent years hiding? Sebastian continued, this position comes with a salary, full benefits, and a corporate housing option if you choose it. He paused. It would give you stability, and it would make any custody attempt from Chase nearly impossible. Madison pressed a hand to her trembling lips. Housing? Salary? A future she could control? I don't want charity, she whispered again, out of habit, out of fear. This isn't charity, Sebastian said softly. This is a job, one I believe you can do. Her heart pounded painfully. Could she really step into this world? Could she accept help from a man she barely knew? Why me? She asked. Sebastian held her gaze, steady and unflinching. Because you remind me of someone I once failed to save. And I'm not making that mistake again. Madison's breath caught. Before she could respond, the lounge door swung open abruptly. A security guard rushed in, eyes wide. Mr. Hale, there's a situation downstairs. Someone's demanding to see Madison Reed. Madison's stomach dropped. Madison felt her stomach twist painfully as the security guard's words echoed through the private lounge. Chase was here. At Hale Corp. In Sebastian Hale's building. She rose instinctively, one hand on the armrest, the other instinctively covering her belly. I need to go down there, she whispered, though fear rattled her bones. Sebastian stood too, calm but resolute. You won't go alone. The elevator ride felt impossibly long. Madison's reflection in the mirrored walls looked pale, anxious, overwhelmed. She wished she could hide the trembling in her hands, but Sebastian noticed. He stepped slightly closer, not touching, not crowding, just enough for her to feel steadier. When we reach the lobby, he said quietly, you don't speak to him unless you want to. I'll handle the rest. A breath escaped her. Why are you doing this? Because no one ever protected you when you needed it, he answered. That changes now. Her throat tightened unexpectedly. Maybe kindness feels foreign only to those who lived too long without it. The elevator chimed. The lobby was buzzing, employees, security, even a few onlookers whispering. And in the center of it all stood Chase Donovan, red-faced, frantic, and dressed in a wrinkled designer shirt that looked like he'd slept on someone's couch. When he saw Madison, his face brightened with false relief. There you are. Mads, we need to talk. Before she could respond, Sebastian stepped slightly in front of her. His voice was calm, dangerous in its restraint. You're trespassing, Mr. Donovan. Chase blinked, startled. Who the hell are you? Someone who expects you to keep your distance from my employee, Sebastian said. This building is private property. Madison felt Chase's gaze flick to her belly, then to Sebastian, then back to her. A mix of jealousy, suspicion, and desperation clouded his expression. So this is what it is? He snapped. You're with him now? That fast? Madison recoiled as his voice rose. Sebastian didn't move, but the security team subtly closed in, ready. This has nothing to do with you, Madison said softly, though her voice trembled. Please just leave. But Chase stepped forward, anger morphing into panic. No, I'm not leaving without my family. You think you can just erase me? You think I'll let my own child be raised by... Enough, Sebastian said, his tone dropping like ice. For the first time, Chase faltered. Sebastian turned to security. Escort Mr. Donovan out. If he returns without legal grounds, he'll be arrested. Madison watched as Chase's expression twisted into something darker than anger, something like fear. As security moved in, Chase shouted over their shoulders. This isn't over, Madison. You can't hide behind him. You're going to regret this. The words echoed through the lobby long after he was dragged out. Madison's knees weakened. Sebastian caught her arm gently. Are you all right? He asked. But before she could answer, Sebastian's phone buzzed. He read the message, his expression sharpening. Madison, someone just accessed your old apartment, and they were looking for documents with your name on them. For a long moment, Madison could only stare at Sebastian, her pulse thundering in her ears. Someone broke into my old apartment? She asked, voice trembling. Sebastian lowered his phone slowly. The landlord reported the door forced open. Nothing valuable was taken. Only your old files were touched. Madison's breath hitched. Files? Chase never cared about paperwork. He barely read bills. That's exactly why this is alarming, Sebastian replied. Someone isn't looking for valuables, they're looking for leverage. Her mind raced medical bills, prenatal appointments, Ellie's school records, her work history. Every document carried pieces of her life she never imagined could be weaponized. How did everything become so dangerous so fast? A wave of dizziness hit her, and she steadied herself against the wall. The baby kicked hard, as if sensing the rise in her panic. Sebastian immediately stepped closer. "Sit," he said gently but firmly. She obeyed, lowering herself into one of the lobby chairs as if her bones had turned to water. "I don't understand why Chase would do this," she whispered. "He walked away. He didn't want responsibility. He didn't want us." "Desperation changes people," Sebastian said. "Especially men like him, men who've lived their whole lives believing consequences don't apply to them." His tone carried a sharpness she hadn't heard before, something almost personal. She wondered, not for the first time, what ghost Sebastian Hale carried behind his calm exterior. "I should have seen this coming," Madison murmured. "I should have protected Ellie better. Protected the baby." "Stop." Sebastian crouched in front of her, meeting her eyes. "You have been carrying 2 children on your back while rebuilding your entire life. Do not blame yourself for the damage someone else caused." She swallowed hard, emotion rising unexpectedly. How long had it been since someone defended her with sincerity and not obligation? Sebastian straightened, resolve sharpening in his posture. "You're not going back to that apartment. My team will collect your belongings and have them delivered. You'll stay in corporate housing until we sort this out." Her eyes widened. "Sebastian, I can't." "You can," he said softly, "and you will. I won't risk your safety." She opened her mouth to protest again, but his expression silenced her. He wasn't offering charity. He was drawing a boundary around her safety, around her children, like it was a duty he'd already accepted. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed again. He glanced at it, brows lifting in surprise. "It's from my security team," he said. "They found something unusual at your old place." Madison's stomach twisted. "What?" Sebastian slowly turned the phone toward her. A grainy security photo displayed a figure entering her building, someone she knew too well. Liana, Chase's model girlfriend. And she was carrying Madison's medical files. Madison had forgotten what Manhattan looked like from above. Not the tourist's view, not the subway commuter's angle, but the view from a glass tower where the city stretched like a promise instead of a threat. HaleCorp's corporate SUV pulled up in front of a sleek Park Avenue building, and for the first time in months, Madison felt something strange bloom in her chest. Not fear, not exhaustion, something closer to possibility. Sebastian stepped out first, offering his hand not insistently, just politely. She placed her fingers into his, startled at how steadying the gesture felt. Inside, the marble lobby hummed with quiet wealth executives in tailored suits, soft echoes of heels on stone, the distant hum of an espresso machine. Madison felt out of place in her simple maternity dress, but Sebastian seemed determined to anchor her. "You belong here more than you think," he murmured, as though reading her thoughts. She didn't answer. She wasn't sure she believed him. A woman in a navy blazer approached, smiling warmly. "Miss Reed? I'm Dana, Mr. Hale's chief of staff. I'll help get you settled." Settled, the word felt foreign on her tongue. Madison hadn't been settled since before Chase ruined everything. Dana handed her a sleek access badge. "You'll have full clearance to this floor and the event operations suite. Your desk is ready and your onboarding packet is waiting." My desk. My job. My future. For a moment, Madison closed her eyes, letting the reality sink in. She wasn't here by accident. Someone believed in her enough to stake more than a polite favor. As Dana walked her through the modern workspace, MacBook Pros on every desk, panoramic windows, fresh orchids, Madison felt something painful and beautiful rise inside her. For the first time since her marriage ended, she felt Endurth capable. When they reached her assigned desk, she ran her fingers along the smooth surface. "I can't believe this is real," she whispered. "It's real," Sebastian said behind her. "And it's yours." She turned, heart catching somewhere between gratitude and disbelief. "Why are you doing so much for me?" Sebastian didn't hesitate. "Because strength like yours shouldn't go unnoticed, and because Chase Donovan doesn't get to decide the rest of your story." Before Madison could respond, Dana rushed back, face pale. "Mr. Hale's security just flagged something." Sebastian stiffened. What is it? Dana swallowed. Liana Brooks is downstairs, demanding access to Miss Reed. And she's not alone. Madison felt the blood drain from her face. Dana finished in a whisper. She brought a lawyer. They're claiming Chase has already filed for emergency custody. The words emergency custody hit Madison like a punch to the chest. Her knees wobbled, and she grabbed the edge of her new desk to steady herself. Only hours ago, she had stepped into this place believing it might be the beginning of something new, something safe. Now it felt like her old life was clawing its way back with sharper teeth. Sebastian immediately placed a hand on the back of her chair. Sit, he murmured, voice steady but edged with anger. He kept tightly leashed. Dana, get legal on the line. Now. Dana nodded and hurried off. Madison pressed a hand to her stomach, trying to breathe through the panic rising in her throat. Emergency custody. He can't do that, can he? Chase barely even sees Ellie. He hasn't come to an appointment, he hasn't paid support, and no judge in New York will overlook that, Sebastian said firmly. He's trying to intimidate you. This is noise, not law. But Madison had lived enough years with Chase to know something chilling. He didn't need truth to win. He only needed chaos. I shouldn't have come here today, she whispered. Maybe this is all my fault. Maybe I provoked him. Sebastian crouched beside her chair, meeting her eyes with a patience she wasn't used to. Listen to me. Men like Chase cause damage, then convince the world their victims deserved it. Do not absorb his guilt. Something inside her cracked, not a break, but a release. Why does he always know the thing I need to hear before I even hear myself? Before she could respond, another employee appeared, breathless. Sir, you need to see this. He handed Sebastian an iPad. Sebastian glanced at the screen, and his expression went from calm to icy. Madison's heart raced. What is it? He turned the screen toward her. A gossip site. A photo of Chase and Liana outside a courthouse. And a headline in bold. Father fights for unborn baby after wife's mysterious relationship with billionaire. Below the headline was a photo of her walking into Hale Corp that very morning, one hand on her pregnant belly. Madison felt sick. They're painting me as someone unstable, as a cheater. Sebastian's jaw clenched. This is coordinated. Chase wants public sympathy before the hearing. Hearing? Madison echoed, breath hitching. What hearing? Dana returned just then, face pale. The lawyer downstairs. He filed for a temporary order. They want you served today. Madison's blood ran cold. Sebastian stood, posture tall and merciless. Get her upstairs, he ordered. No one serves her here. Madison looked up at him, panicked. What do I do? His gaze softened, just enough to anchor her. Madison, he said quietly, you're going to fight, and I'm going to make sure you win. Before she could reply, the elevator dinged. The doors slid open, and inside stood the last person Madison expected to see, her estranged mother. For a second, Madison forgot how to breathe. Her mother, Elaine Reed, stood in the elevator with her purse clutched to her chest, looking older than Madison remembered. The same steel-gray eyes, the same guarded posture, but less certainty, less fire. Time had carved regret into the corners of her face. Mom? Madison whispered, voice cracking. Elaine stepped forward hesitantly. Hi, sweetheart. Sweetheart. A word Elaine hadn't used since Madison was a teenager, before the fights, before the nights she didn't come home, before the day she packed a suitcase and disappeared, leaving Madison to raise herself long before adulthood. Sebastian glanced between them, understanding instantly that this wasn't a reunion built on warmth. Madison, he said quietly, we can move this somewhere private. But Madison shook her head. Her emotions were tangled, anger, grief, longing she'd ignored for years. Why are you here? Elaine swallowed hard. I saw the news, the headline, the custody filing. Her voice trembled. I didn't know who to call. I had to find you. Madison felt her chest tighten. It's been almost 15 years, Mom. Now you show up? Elaine winced, as though the truth physically struck her. I know I don't deserve to be here. But Chase came to see me. Madison felt the floor tilt. He what? Elaine nodded. A week ago, he tracked me down in Florida. Said he needed family support to show the court you were unstable, that your childhood was evidence. Her voice broke. He wanted me to testify against you. Cold washed over Madison. Of course. Chase always used people's brokenness as tools. I told him no, Elaine whispered. I told him I'd rather die than let him take my grandchildren. Madison blinked, stunned. The woman who once walked away from motherhood was now defending her fiercely. Life, it seemed, had a cruel sense of symmetry. Sebastian studied Elaine with quiet calculation. Why did you come here? Why now? Elaine's eyes filled with tears. Because I know what it's like to lose your children, even when it's your fault. And I won't let history repeat itself. She turned to Madison fully. I want to help, if you'll let me. Madison's throat tightened. A part of her wanted to push Elaine away to remind her of every wound she left behind. Another part, the part exhausted from fighting alone, ached for even the smallest piece of support. I don't know if I can trust you, Madison whispered. I know, Elaine said softly, but I'm here anyway. Before Madison could respond, Sebastian's phone vibrated sharply. He checked the screen, and his expression darkened. He turned the phone toward Madison and Elaine. A live video was streaming. Liana and Chase standing outside Ellie's school. For a moment, the world stopped moving. Madison stared at Sebastian's phone screen, her pulse thundering in her throat. The live stream showed Chase and Liana standing on the sidewalk in front of Ellie's school, smiling, waving at passing parents like they belonged there. The caption read, "Father arrives to rescue daughter from unsafe environment." It was happening. Chase wasn't just posturing now, he was staging a narrative. Madison's breath fractured. He can't take her. He can't even pick her up without being on the contact list. They won't release her to him. Sebastian was already moving, signaling for his security team. I'm sending a car. You'll be there in 8 minutes. My people are calling the school right now. Elaine clutched her purse, pale. Mads, I'm so sorry. No, Madison said, her voice cracking. Not now, please. For once, Elaine stayed silent. They reached the elevator, and as the doors closed, Madison pressed a hand against her belly. The baby kicked a reminder that she wasn't panicking alone, that she had more to protect than just her own shattered heart. Sebastian stepped closer, not touching her, just grounding her with his presence. Listen to me, he said softly. Even if Chase tries something today, legally he has no right to custody without a hearing. The school won't release Ellie. She's safe until you get there. His calm steadiness seeped into her, but fear still gnawed at her spine. What if he convinces a teacher? What if Ellie gets scared? She freezes when he yells, he knows that. Sebastian's jaw tightened. He won't get near her. The SUV was already waiting when the doors opened onto the street. They climbed in, the city blurring past as the driver cut through traffic. Madison's heart punched her ribs with every turn. She kept seeing Ellie's small hands, Ellie's shy smile, Ellie's terrified eyes when Chase raised his voice. Mommy will come, she whispered to herself. Please let me get there in time. Halfway to the school, Sebastian's phone buzzed. He answered immediately. Yes? A pause. Good. Keep her inside. Don't let them approach any staff. Madison's lungs finally loosened. They didn't get her? No. Sebastian met her eyes. Not today. She sagged against the seat, relief washing over her until the SUV stopped at a red light, and she saw them through the window. Chase and Liana were no longer smiling. They were arguing with a man in a suit, Madison's old landlord. And he was holding a folder, the same folder Liana stole. Sebastian muttered, "What the hell are they doing?" And then Madison realized it. They were gathering evidence, fabricating a case that she was an unfit mother. By the evening, the city felt like it was holding its breath. Hale Corp's annual charity gala at the Plaza Hotel was usually a sanctuary of glittering chandeliers, whispered investments, and dresses that cost more than Madison's old annual salary. Tonight, it felt like a battlefield, one she somehow had been pulled into without armor. She hadn't planned on going. But Sebastian insisted her presence would counter Chase's narrative, proving she wasn't hiding or unstable. So Madison wore a simple but elegant navy gown Dana found for her, one that skimmed over her pregnancy and made her feel unexpectedly like a woman reclaiming herself. Sebastian walked beside her, offering steady reassurance. Guests whispered as they passed. Not cruelly, curiously. The billionaire and the pregnant woman. Power and vulnerability walking side by side. For once, Madison didn't shrink. But the illusion shattered the moment she saw them. Chase and Liana, standing near the champagne tower, pretending they belonged among Manhattan's elite. Liana wore a glittering gold dress that screamed desperation more than glamour. Chase looked polished on the outside, but his eyes gave away the panic simmering beneath the facade. When he spotted Madison, his expression twisted into an ugly mixture of triumph and bitterness. "Well, look who decided to show up," he said loudly. "Trying to impress the billionaire who's been hosting you?" Guests turned, cameras lifted, Madison's stomach dropped. Sebastian stepped forward, a wall of quiet power. "Mr. Donovan, you're not on the guest list. Leave, or security will escort you out." Chase laughed, too loudly. "Oh, please, I came for my children. Someone has to protect them from this circus." He gestured toward the crowd, then toward Sebastian. "And from the man trying to replace their father?" A murmur rippled through the room. Madison's hands trembled, but she forced herself to stand tall. She had spent years shrinking for Chase. Tonight, she wouldn't. "You don't get to play the victim," she said softly, but the microphone behind her caught every word, sending them echoing through the ballroom. "You left us, and now you want custody because you're drowning in debt." Gasps spread like wildfire. Chase's face drained of color. "That's a lie." "It's documented," Madison replied. "And you tried to steal my medical files to twist the story." Liana stiffened beside him, guilt flashing across her face. Sebastian nodded discreetly to security, who began to approach. Chase realized he was losing the narrative and control. So, like every desperate man, he chose destruction. "You want the truth?" he shouted. "Fine. Then tell them who the baby belongs to." The room froze. Madison felt her breath vanish, and Chase pointed directly at Sebastian. "Tell them, Madison, did you sleep with him while we were still married?" For a split second, there was absolute silence. Not a clink of glass. Not a whisper. Not even a breath. Dozens of Manhattan's most powerful people stared at Madison as Chase's accusation exploded through the ballroom like a grenade. She felt every gaze like a spotlight, hot and merciless. Her heart hammered painfully against her ribs. This is exactly what Chase wanted. A public humiliation. Sebastian remained stone still beside her, unreadable, the kind of calm only a man who understood power and the weight of false accusations could possess. Madison swallowed hard. "That's not true," she said, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her throat. Chase laughed, a brittle, unhinged sound. "Really? Because the timing seems convenient, don't you think? Suddenly you're in his building, at his events, pregnant and acting like a victim?" A wave of murmurs swept the crowd. Cameras raised. Phones flashed. The internet was already writing its own version of the truth. Madison felt heat rising behind her eyes, but she refused to cry. Not here, not in front of Chase, not in front of Ellie someday, when she might see this. Sebastian finally stepped forward. "Mr. Donovan," he said, voice calm but razor-sharp, "you will stop speaking to her like that, or I will personally make sure you spend the night in a holding cell." Chase scoffed. "Oh, the billionaire plays hero. How predictable." Madison exhaled shakily. She'd had enough. "Chase," she said softly, soft enough that the entire ballroom leaned in. "You walked out on me, on our daughter, on this baby. You chose a model and a lifestyle you couldn't afford. And now that your world is falling apart, you want to drag us down with you." Chase's jaw tightened. Madison continued, her voice gaining strength with every word. "But I won't let you. And I won't let you use lies to rewrite what you did." A reporter shouted from the back, "Mr. Hale, is the baby yours?" Before Madison could react, Sebastian answered. "No," he said firmly, "but the fact that the question is even being asked shows the level of harassment this woman has endured. And it ends now." Gasps rippled. Madison's chest tightened, not from embarrassment, but from the unexpected fierceness of his defense. Chase lunged forward. "This isn't over." Security restrained him instantly. Liana backed away from him, mascara smudging. For the first time, she looked afraid of the man she once flaunted. Sebastian turned to Madison. "You shouldn't be here anymore. We're leaving." But before they could exit, Sebastian's head of security rushed in, breathless. "Sir, there's been a development at the courthouse." Madison froze. The guard continued. "The emergency custody hearing has been moved to tomorrow morning." And Chase filed new evidence. The ride back from the plaza felt different this time. No glamour, no soft laughter drifting from the ballroom. only the heavy silence of a woman bracing for a battle she never asked to fight. Madison sat in the back of the SUV, staring at the city lights as if they might offer answers. Her mother, Elaine, sat beside her, hands wringing nervously. Sebastian sat across from them, his expression carved from steel. New evidence, Madison whispered. What could he possibly have? Sebastian exhaled slowly. If it's fabricated, we will dismantle it. If it's stolen, we will expose him. Either way, he will not win tomorrow. His confidence should have comforted her. Instead, she felt guilt twist deep in her chest. I never wanted any of this, she murmured. I just wanted peace for Ellie. For the baby. Now the whole city thinks I'm a scandal? Sebastian finished. Let them think. Truth doesn't need their approval. Elaine reached for Madison's hand. Sweetheart, I'm so sorry for everything. I should have been there. You shouldn't have had to face any of this alone. Madison swallowed hard. It was strange being comforted by the mother who once vanished. Strange, but not unwelcome. Not tonight. When they reached the corporate housing building, Sebastian arranged for her. Security escorted them inside. Madison stood in the living room of the quiet apartment, faint city glow spilling across the floor. Everything was clean, safe, warm, everything she thought she would never have again. Sebastian stepped inside, keeping a respectful distance. My legal team will work through the night. You won't face the judge alone tomorrow. Madison nodded but didn't turn around. Why are you doing all this for me, Sebastian? He didn't answer immediately, and that silence told her more than words could. Finally he said gently, because someone I loved once needed help, and I wasn't there in time. I won't make that mistake twice. Madison's breath caught. A confession not full, but enough to feel the weight behind it. I don't want to be a burden, she whispered. You aren't, he said. You're a mother trying to protect her children. That's strength, real strength. Her eyes stung. Before she could respond, a sharp knock sounded at the door. Elaine jumped. Madison tensed. Sebastian motioned for her to stay back as he approached. Who is it? He asked firmly. A voice answered, cold and far too familiar. Legal courier. I have documents for Madison Reed. Sebastian froze, because the envelope slid under the door wasn't from the court, but from Chase's lawyer and marked evidence, confidential. The envelope slid across the floor like a threat wrapped in paper. Madison stared at it, her breath catching in her throat. Something inside her knew nothing good ever came in an envelope marked confidential from Chase's lawyer. Sebastian bent down and picked it up carefully, as though expecting it to explode. Elaine hovered behind Madison, gripping her shoulders. The apartment felt suddenly too quiet, too small to contain the dread pulsing through it. Sebastian opened the envelope slowly, then stilled. What is it? Madison whispered. He exhaled, jaw clenching. He's attempting to prove you're unfit. He's using your medical history. Madison blinked, confused. My medical history? What history? Sebastian hesitated. From when you were 19? A sharp, icy fear pierced her chest. She knew exactly what he meant. Years ago, before Ellie, before Chase, before life hardened her, she had suffered a panic attack so severe she'd been taken to an ER. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't ongoing. It wasn't who she was anymore. But the record existed, and Chase had it. Her hands shook. He can't use that. That was one episode. I was a kid. He's framing it as a pattern, Sebastian said tightly, claiming you have untreated mental instability dangerous to children. Madison felt the room tilt. All her work to stay strong, all her effort to keep her children safe, reduced to a weapon in Chase's hands. Elaine stepped forward. That's my fault, she whispered, voice cracking. If I hadn't left back then. Stop, Madison said sharply, tears burning her eyes. This isn't your burden. But inside, the memory hurt she had been alone then, and Chase was now twisting that loneliness into ammunition. Sebastian turned the page. His expression darkened further. There's more. Madison braced herself. He submitted photos of your old apartment. The damaged fridge, the broken heater, the clutter from when you were packing. He's claiming neglect. That's not neglect, Madison said, voice trembling. That's poverty. That's survival. And no judge should punish a mother for surviving, Sebastian replied. But Chase is betting the court won't see the difference. Madison pressed a hand to her belly. The baby shifted gently, grounding her. I can't lose them, she whispered. Sebastian, I can't. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. You won't. We'll dismantle this. But there's something else you need to know. Madison swallowed. What? Sebastian met her eyes, his expression shifting from protective to grave. The judge assigned to your case tomorrow has deep ties to Chase's family. A cold chill ran down Madison's spine. No, she whispered. It means, Sebastian said quietly, tomorrow will be far from fair. Before she could speak, his phone buzzed again. He read the message, face tightening. Madison, they're filing for temporary removal. They want Ellie taken tonight. Madison felt the air leave her lungs. Tonight? They want to take Ellie tonight? Her body went cold, then hot, then numb fear, detonating inside her like shrapnel. She reached for the nearest chair before her knees buckled. No, she whispered. They can't. They can't take my daughter. I haven't done anything wrong. Sebastian didn't hesitate. They won't. I'll make sure of it. But even his certainty couldn't quiet the terror tightening her chest. When you're a mother, everything becomes sharp, every breath, every heartbeat, every danger. Elaine stepped closer, her voice trembling. Madison, listen to me. Chase doesn't want Ellie. He wants control. That's all he's ever wanted. Madison looked at her mother, really looked at her, and saw something she never recognized before in those gray eyes. Remorse, and a fierce protectiveness born far too late, but no less real. We're not letting him destroy your family, Elaine whispered. Sebastian tapped his phone, firing messages rapid fire. My legal team is filing an emergency injunction. My security will pick up Ellie from school tomorrow morning before the hearing and escort her safely here. Tonight, she stays with you. Madison's vision blurred. Gratitude and exhaustion collided inside her like waves in a storm. Why are you helping me this much? She asked, her voice paper-thin. You barely know me. Sebastian looked at her with a softness that cut through every wall she'd built. Because strength deserves support. Because you've been fighting alone for far too long. And because your children deserve a future not defined by their father's failures. The words hit her heart with a force she wasn't prepared for. He continued, quieter now. And maybe, I see a bit of myself in your story, a version I once wished I could save. Her breath caught. She had sensed his grief, but hearing even a glimpse of it felt like being trusted with something precious. The apartment grew still. For the first time, Madison felt something shift inside her, a spark of power she'd forgotten she possessed. I'm not losing my children, she said, standing straighter. Not tomorrow. Not ever. Sebastian nodded once, as if sealing a pact between them. Then let's finish what he started, and end it on your terms. Elaine exhaled shakily, wiping her eyes. Sweetheart, whatever happens tomorrow, you won't walk into that courtroom alone. Not this time. Madison placed a hand on her belly. The baby kicked softly, as if agreeing. Before she could speak, Sebastian's phone buzzed again, this time with a tone she hadn't heard yet. He checked it, and his face drained of color. Madison, he said slowly, you're not going to believe who just offered to testify against Chase. He turned the screen toward her. It was Liana, and she wanted to switch sides. The courtroom felt colder than Madison expected. Maybe it was the polished marble floors, or maybe it was the weight of a future that could be rewritten with a single ruling. She sat beside Sebastian, her mother behind her, and for the first time, she didn't feel like a woman walking into battle alone. Across the aisle, Chase looked worn, his suit rumpled, eyes bloodshot, confidence cracked. Liana sat a few seats away, arms crossed, avoiding his gaze. So much for forever, Madison thought. When the judge entered, everyone rose. Madison's hands trembled, but Sebastian's presence beside her steadied the shaking inside her chest. The hearing began. Chase's lawyer presented the evidence photos of the old apartment, the medical record from when she was 19, a statement claiming she was emotionally unreliable. But this time, Madison didn't shrink. Sebastian's legal team dismantled every claim with calm precision. The broken fridge? Fixed within 48 hours. The clutter? From moving after Chase abandoned them. The medical history? A single incident, over a decade old, no recurrence. Then came the twist Chase never expected. Liana stepped forward. Her heels clicked like a metronome of doom across the courtroom floor. She cleared her throat, voice shaking but determined. I want to submit a statement, she said. Chase pressured me to steal those medical files. He told me he would ruin Madison if she didn't give him custody. He never cared about the kids, he just needed leverage for his debts. A collective gasp rippled through the room. Chase went pale. Leanna, what the hell? Don't talk to me, she snapped. I'm done letting you manipulate me. The judge silenced the room with a single raised hand. After reviewing the evidence and the lies, she delivered the ruling. Full custody remains with Miss Reed. Mr. Donovan is barred from unsupervised visitation until further review. This court will not be used as a weapon. Madison exhaled slow, shaky, freeing. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but for the first time in years, they weren't born of fear. They were relief. Victory. Rebirth. Outside the courthouse, sunlight met her skin like a blessing. Sebastian stepped beside her, not imposing, just present. You fought hard, he said softly. You won. Madison looked at him, really seeing him, the steadiness, the kindness, the quiet strength. I didn't win alone, she whispered. He offered his hand not as a rescuer, not as a billionaire, but as a man choosing her future as much as she was choosing his. Madison, he said, voice warm, hopeful, would you let me be part of your next chapter? Her heart swelled. Yes, she breathed. I think you already are. And in that moment, holding the hand of a man who saw her worth long before she did, Madison Reed stepped fully into the life she deserved. Not as a victim, not as a woman abandoned, but as a mother, a fighter, and finally, as someone loved. You know, now that the story has come to a close, I want to talk directly to you, yes, you, the wonderful friend who is still here with us right now. If you stayed until this moment, maybe something in Madison's journey touched your heart. Maybe it reminded you of a chapter in your own life, one you fought through quietly, bravely, even when no one noticed. What Madison learned is something the Stoics taught long before us. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Real strength begins there. Life will hurt us. People will disappoint us. But like Marcus Aurelius wrote, the obstacle becomes the way. Sometimes the very thing that breaks us open is what leads us to a better path, a better love, a better version of ourselves. And if tonight you feel a little stronger, a little seen, or a little more hopeful, then this story did its job. If this touched you in any way, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Không phải vì thuật toán, mà để chúng ta tiếp tục giữ nhau lại trong những câu chuyện chữa lành như thế này. You're not alone. And your story isn't over.